You are in for an interesting ride.
Hello and welcome to another Ammach Project Archive episodes. And this one, we're still on the Ammach in America series. And today's it is with the great Robert O. Dean, Bob Dean. He was a command sergeant major in the army for around 28 years. Thereafter, he did another 14 years with FEMA and also apparently successfully prosecuted the Prima County for some kind of discrimination to do with his UFO beliefs and stuff. And he actually settled for about $100,000. So rumor has it. It isn't often that I would say that I have interviewed a legend. And I think Bob O'Dean became a legend in his own lifetime, that's for sure. He cites his breaking of his oath and secrecy down to the fact that he just believed that the people should know, and that his own contact with others from other planets or galaxies, he didn't say where they were from, but his face-on-face contact led him to believe that we have a glorious future awaiting once we've grown up out of the painful adolescent stage. And I hope you enjoy this retrospective interview with Robert O'Dean in 2013. And we miss him very much when he passed in October 2018. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Ammach in America, the 22nd International UFO Conference, and we're here in sunny Arizona. It's wonderful. Now I have a very special guest, and I'm absolutely delighted and honored to welcome Bob Dean. Bob, welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you
Annie.
for spending some time with us.
It's my pleasure, sweetheart. Thank you.
I would just like to ask you about your initial experiences and how you got to your understanding of ET and the effect it's having on our planet and our governments.
You're asking me to go back from to the beginning, honey, and we have to go back 50 years at least. I spent most of my adult life as a professional soldier. I spent 27 years on active duty in the Army, and I had the pleasure of being assigned to Supreme Headquarters, Allied Powers in Europe, in 1963. Which at that time was located just outside of Paris in France. So I went off to my new assignment in 1963.
And what was your role in that assignment?
Well, I was assigned, at the time I had a top secret clearance. And I applied for an assignment at SHAPE because it was rather a choice assignment. I was able to take my wife, children with me, and we went to Paris. My kids went to high school in Paris. And in the summer of 1963, I went off to SHAPE headquarters in Paris with a top secret clearance. At the moment I arrived, I was assigned to the operations division of SHAPE headquarters, and a further assignment to what we call SHOC, the Supreme Headquarters Operations Center, which was that time the war room. So my top secret clearance was upgraded to cosmic top secret, which was then and still is the highest level of security classification in NATO. I worked in the war room, and I was assigned to run the duty rosters in the war room, and we were on a shift, 10 and 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it was during that assignment that I was exposed to a very top secret, sensitive SHAPE study called an assessment. And the assessment at the time was a study that they initiated in 1961. They published it in 63. And I got a copy and I was able to read it, and it changed my life.
And what were the circumstances of you having access to this document?
Well, I had a cosmic top secret clearance. I worked in the war room. And when they published the document, they only published 15 copies. And one of the copies was assigned to the Shape War Room. Shock. And because I worked there, I had a desk in there, I was exposed to the document. I had a chance to look at it, and it literally blew my lid. It changed my life. It was a 3-year study that NATO had done about the extraterrestrial presence. The fact that they were here, they'd been here for several thousands of years. The initial study was decided to determine whether they were or not a threat to Allied forces in Europe.
And was there something that precipitated this report being made in the first place?
Well, of course. One of the things that caused the big stir back then is that we in the Soviet Union, we had a divided Europe. The Iron Curtain had come down. We had the NATO forces on the left side, Western Europe. The Warsaw Pact and the NATO, or the Soviet forces, were on the eastern side. And there had been a number of flyovers of large circular metallic craft flying all over Europe in those days. In formation, very obviously under intelligent control. Now, for a time, the Soviets thought those objects belonged to us. And for a short time, we thought they might belong to the Soviets.
Which could have caused a real issue.
Well, it
problem.
could have posed a were armed to the teeth. The Warsaw Pact on the east and the NATO forces on the west. We all had our hands on the guns and fingers on the trigger. Yeah, World War III was moments away. So these objects flying all over Europe in formation at a high altitude, tremendous speeds, and obviously under intelligent control. So this NATO study was decided to determine what were they? Were they a threat to us? What were they? Who were they? We found out that they didn't belong to the Soviets, and the Soviets found that they didn't belong to us. So the big question was, who the hell are these guys? And this 3-year study indicated that they were extraterrestrials from several other planets, and they were here monitoring everything we did.
Did they name the kind of planets that were involved? Did they have any idea?
In those days, they had no idea where they were from. All we knew during the study was that there were 4 different groups involved. They were all humanoid, but one group was entirely human. They looked so much like us that they could have sat beside us in a restaurant or in a theater or in an airplane, and we would have never known.
How did they find out about these 4 different races? Was it a consequence of downed craft?
Well, I refer, quote unquote, they made it very clear to everybody, us and the Soviets, that they were from somewhere else and that they were here monitoring us to make damn sure we didn't start World War III. That was their primary purpose. Now, they used to come and they would land on our airfields. They would land in private homes. Well, they landed every damn place.
Right, so not just in America, in Europe as well?
No, it was all over the world, honey.
Right.
But we were all ratched up there, you know. We were
Sure.
wound up around the clock, so to speak. As I said, it was a very difficult time because we and the Soviets were facing each other, and we could have been just moments away from another war. Well, we learned from the study that these guys were determined to make damn certain that we and the Soviets didn't start another war. And over the years, they made their presence more and more known. As I said, they flew over, they landed, they'd get out of their ships and invite people aboard. I'm sorry?
And do you know of any of the people who were invited aboard craft or had any
Well,
discussion?
there was one case that was in the study. There was a Danish farmer who was sitting down to lunch one afternoon in a little farm outside of some little town in Denmark. He and his wife heard a commotion in the barnyard, the chickens and farm animals began making a big ruckus. The old man got up from his lunch table and opened the door and looked out, and this ship had come down and landed in his pasture right behind his house. And it landed on 3 legs, a tripod, a hatch opened, 2 human-looking people came down the ramp, came over to the old man and invited him aboard. He pulled his napkin around his neck. So he was delighted. He went aboard with them. They took him for a flight. They went off God knows where. They'd gone about 30, 40 minutes. His missus, by this time, having watched her husband disappear into this object, she got all hysterical. She called the local police. The local police called the military, and everybody showed up at the house. Ship came back, landed in the pasture on 3 legs. The hatch opened. The old man came down and he said, "Boy, let me tell you where I've been. Let me tell you what I've seen." Well, the military grabbed him and whisked him away for about 4 or 5 days of, what do they call it?
Yes, interrogation of some kind.
Deprogramming him and all,
debriefing.
briefing him. And he had a ball. He had a delightful time. Now, the 2 guys who got out of the ship spoke perfect Danish. And they looked just like, human beings. We had another case in an Allied air base in northern Italy. Just 2 days before Christmas, the ship landed on the runway at this Allied base, this NATO base.
So would this be in the 1960s again?
This was in the early 60s.
Yeah.
And a young Italian security guard was on duty, and they landed on the runway. A couple of guys got out and in perfect Italian invited him to come aboard and take a ride. Well, the poor kid was so upset that he peed in his pants and was so scared he wasn't about to go aboard. And they said, "Well, bonjour," Off they went. Away they went. Well, this happened again and again and again.
And did it involve any military personnel or government?
Well, the young soldier in northern Italy was a military man.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from all these reports then, and then the study, what was the conclusion?
The conclusion, honey, after a 3-year study was, 1, they were not malevolent. They were not a danger. They were not a threat. The study concluded that they had been coming and going for not only hundreds, but perhaps thousands of years, and that there was some sort of a program underway involving them.
Did they communicate any of the detail of that to any of our powers that be, the ones that would make the decisions?
The points they made, and they made them very well, was that they were not a threat, that they were here to nurture, watch, survey, monitor, watch our growth and development. And the idea was that we were a rather primitive and backward society, and we had nuclear weapons, and we were a danger to ourselves.
A bit like children playing with matches.
Well, it's like older brothers looking at younger brothers. They used to joke about it, that they showed interest in us because the joke we used to have was we were like the kids who found the box of hand grenades.
Yes, even worse.
Yeah, they were worried that we were going to pull the pins and blow ourselves up.
Was there any information or detail about what would happen as a consequence if we were allowed to continue on our way to World War III?
Well, they made it very clear, and they made it clear over the years, and they've still made it very clear, because we still have an intimate relationship with at least 2 of the groups. Out of the 4 we knew of in 1963, we have a relationship with at least 2 of them, and they've made it very clear that we are being evaluated as what you might call a third world country. We were being evaluated for possible membership in a galactic federation. They are members of a vast federation of planets, in different planets, different star systems, even from different galaxies, and that we are being evaluated and nurtured and encouraged to grow up a little bit, dispense with our nuclear weapons and dispense with our traditional war-making processes.
Well, that hasn't really changed. We haven't stopped with our war-making.
Well, that's what's so
things.
sad about it.
It is, it's tragic.
That was the beginning for me. But over the years, and the more I learned and the deeper I got involved in my studies, until the day I retired from the Army in 1976, I still had a top secret clearance. And then during those years, I began to have face-to-face meetings with some of them.
Oh, you did?
I have.
Do you know the race that they were? Races?
Well, the ones that I've been dealing with look just like us.
Mm-hmm. Did they say where they were from?
No, they never did. They never tried to explain what planet they were from, or what star system they were from, or even what galaxy they were from. They made the point to me many, many times that they were members of a vast organization out there of civilizations and planets and star systems that are almost infinite.
I mean, that must have been such a privilege and a real incredible journey for you to have been associated with them too.
It was a bit of a shock, honey, I'll be honest with you. When it first began to dawn on me, the impact of what was happening to me was kind of a shock, psychic shock.
I think this is what most experiencers find as well, and of course, again, you're part of that.
I went through a period of time where I literally lost my old worldview. My old paradigm literally crumbled around my knees, you know. The old world that I had been raised in and the world I grew up in, it fell apart. And I had to come face to face with a new reality that we humans on this planet are part of a vast, almost infinite community of intelligent life. And apparently we are worthy of survival.
That's good to know, and I wonder how that's going to be achieved.
Well, you're seeing it take place every day. You'll notice that they have shown themselves more and more. They fly over cities, they hover over airports, they fly along beside our aircraft. We have alien ships in orbit around our planet that are over 5 miles in diameter. And our NASA people have photographed them. And I have shown photographs from Apollo 13 taken on the way to the moon, showing alien craft 5 miles in diameter. We also have photographs taken from the Voyager Enterprise in 1980 when we went to the rings of Saturn. We found objects in the rings of Saturn, self-luminous, artificial objects the size of our moon, moving all around, all over the place under intelligent control. Now, these are artificial constructed objects the size of our moon. Now, our moon is 2,160 miles in diameter. Now, can you imagine an artificial constructed object under self-control? The conclusions reached by the Voyager 1 in 1980 was they apparently are mining the rings.
What for?
The rings are filled with ice, broken rock, and they're rich in nutrients, you know. Anything you could possibly want is in those rings. As I said, about 80-90% of them are water, but they apparently are mining those rings. Now, we're dealing, and I will say this bluntly, and this is the reason why the lid has come down. It's really why there is not going to be anything like a disclosure, because you cannot tell the average person out there that we're dealing with a Type 2 civilization. Because the average guy out there, the ones I jokingly refer to as Joe Six-Pack, you can't tell the average guy on the street out there that we are in a relationship with advanced intelligence from other planets, other star systems, perhaps other dimensions that are Type 2 civilizations that can build artificial objects 5 miles long, 2,000 miles in diameter, because the average guy is simply not able to deal with that. That's why our government, who knows most of this, has kept the lid on this thing for so many years.
And after your time in the Army, were you still being asked by the Army to disclose what your connections had?
After I retired from the Army, I went to work for FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. I worked for FEMA for 14 more years.
Right.
Still kept my top secret clearance. All those years, I continued to study. I continued to have face-to-face meetings with them.
On what sort of regularity?
Oh, every month or two.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I've had them come up to me at the end of a conference like this and introduce themselves. Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic.
They're delightful people.
Maybe they'll be here.
Well, they're family, honey. They really
Sure.
are.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
call them cousins. We have the same, essentially the same genome. One of the groups we found out really had a hand in manipulating our genetics centuries ago, thousands of years ago. And they apparently upgraded us from a lower form, from Australopithecus, whatever, into what we are, Homo sapiens sapiens. Well, that genetic manipulation is still underway. It's still going on. They're still tweaking and upgrading our genes. I must say it's important that I say this to your viewers. The thing that they've made it clear to me again and again and again, that the human race is undergoing a very painful transition. We're going through what I call a period of adolescence into adulthood. And I call it not only a transitory period where it's painful as hell, if many of you can remember your own adolescence, but these guys are apparently determined to see us make that transition. And I call it a transcendent transformation into a new race. 100 years from now, the human race will be so unlike what we are today. 100 years is just a moment in time, because out there they don't measure time. In space-time, there is no time as we know it.
What does the military, your ex-bosses, had to say, if anything, about your continued contact?
When I first began to go public with public speaking in 1991, after many years of maintaining my secrecy, maintaining my oath that I had taken, not to speak about my experiences, I finally lost my cool, I lost my patience, and I said, to hell with it. I'm going to speak out publicly about what I've seen, what I've learned, what I've been shown, because it's important that the people need to know this. And I believe in my heart that the thing that I've been doing over the years and why I attend these conferences and why I feel so strongly about them is it is indeed, I think, contributing to an expansion of consciousness among the human race. And that is crucial for our survival. We've got to grow and understand who we are, what we are, how we came to be here, and where we're going. And I feel very positive about it. And they have encouraged me and they have shown me that our future is infinite. Our future is beautiful, gorgeous, beautiful.
Let me put it this way. I can't imagine how the mass swathe of humanity can suddenly rise up unless there is some other impact happen, like maybe a solar flare which changes, like it said in the solar revolution, our DNA, so our consciousness
it's not something
is
that I expect to have in a big explosive way. It's one person at a time. Each one of us is beginning to open our minds. Each one of us is beginning to wake up. And those of us, like myself, who have been speaking out for the last 25, 30 years, are contributing in some small way. I kind of use the analogy of, I light one little candle. You light one little candle. My good friend over here lights a candle. And if we all light one little candle, before long we have a conflagration. And we will, as a race, wake up, grow up, and with our expanded consciousness, we'll take our rightful place in that infinite universe filled with intelligent life. We are going to be invited to participate in that galactic civilization out there. And I get so excited about it because I'm not going to be around that much longer. I celebrate 84 years on Sunday.
Congratulations.
So I'm not going to be
Fantastic.
here to see this all happen. I'll be looking at you guys from the other side.
We'll be waving.
But I want to tell your viewers, this is something that's got to be kept in your mind. The human race is going to the stars. We're going back to where we came from. And that is a glorious future. And in spite of all the difficulty, in spite of all the heartbreak and the pain of this adolescence we're going through, we have a glorious future. And I want your viewers to know that and not be afraid.
Bob Dean, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, honey. It's my pleasure. Thank you for your interview. All right,
And
sweetheart.
it's a real honor and a pleasure.
All right.
Thanks
It's
again.
my pleasure, honey.
Thank you.
Thank you.